Hi, my name is Sam Schaefer. I'm the owner of Titanium Archery Products, and today's video is to show you a quick tip on how you can shim, like this, with a metal shim, our XF30, XF33, and Omen coupler. And this part is right here. We've been making this now for a little bit, I would say over about maybe 8 months or so. And it works well to mate up with the factory part, which is right here. You can see that part. This is the riser side of it. And that is, of course, what goes into the side of the riser of those bows. And this allows you to utilize these set screws to put in whatever style of cable guard rod you want. And you can eliminate the permanently bonded in piece that is already there on those bows, and you can use titanium instead of carbon. So one thing we found that exists that is a little bit less than ideal is the part that we machined, and this is true also with the factory version. They made it the same way essentially, is it has a small amount of gap. We weren't able to fully eliminate that in the first production run. So what will happen is when you put the rod in there, lock that in place, get this all in against the riser, and then put cable tension on there and put that in against your cable guard rod. Ultimately, what you'll have is that the rod will want to cant a little bit to the side, away from that pressure, because of this small amount of play that exists. And it is not an issue to leave it like that. In fact, I shot my Omen for a long time with it that way. You're still going to get consistency in your accuracy. You can tune to that spot because it will stay there. However, if you don't want there to be any cant, then you have to find a way to eliminate it. Really, the best solution for that is to use a shim. So I'll show you what I made this metal shim from. You probably have access to something like this already. This is essentially just a piece of sheet metal, but it's the ideal thickness. So I'll show you what I have here and where I got that. So as you can see, we have a set of gauges here. These are thickness gauges, which can be bought any number of places, hardware stores, online. You can find these. I decided that about 15 thousandths would be more or less the ideal thickness to use to put in between here to give it that rigidity. So I'll show you here with our dial caliper what the actual thickness of this piece is. So you can see it's zeroed out right now. They're saying it's 15 thousandths. They have it inscribed with that. I didn't know if I fully trusted that that was accurate, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll check to see what the thickness really is. Depending where on the part you measure, you'll get a little bit different numbers, but here we're coming in at 14 thousandths. So if you can find a piece of metal that's similar to that, that's what will work best. So I snipped off the end of that using just a simple pair of snips here that are capable of cutting thin sheet metal. And I'll show you just real quick here, before this is actually installed on the bow, before I put it on the bow, just how much more tightness you can gain by inserting that down into there. So I put that part down in, which then causes the entire assembly to lock together. So already this is considerably tighter, and we haven't put the set screw down in on top yet. So once that goes in, of course that goes in once this is installed on a bow. Then you can lock down. Then this part will not have nearly the same degree of tendency to want to go to that one side. Now, I may be amplifying the level of seriousness of this problem here. It's not. But it's something that for people like me and a lot of other archers will notice things like this and will look for solutions. So I wouldn't be surprised if other people have already thought about this. So what I have here is, of course, a larger, higher than necessary piece. You can see there it's sticking up. So I'll just score the edge of that, I'll mark that, and then I'll cut that off, and then that'll be the right height for this. Now I'll show you on my Omen here that I have already set up. I have this already set up with one of our couplers, and you can see here it's the set screws that that actually hold the rod in place. You probably can see too that there's a gold colored piece in there. So I started with a different shim. I started with a 10,000th shim, and I've decided that that's not thick enough. This is a piece of brass. So brass, stainless steel, even aluminum probably would be okay, but I wouldn't use anything plastic. I think over time, the tension of the cables pushing would compress the plastic down. So we want something that we can't compress, that's not going to reduce in thickness. So I'll resume the video after I've installed the new part with the shim that's thicker. And that way we'll be able to show you what you can do. Now I've shot this bow extensively and very well with it as it is. And you can see here, I'll try to get a good view of the cable guard rod. You can probably tell at this point, I think, holding it up here, you may be able to tell that the rod is canted over a little. So what I mean by canted over, meaning it's pressed one direction or another. It's not center all the way down, not straight line coming out of that coupler. It's not off by much, but it's off enough for someone to notice. So, and I did. So I'll pick up after I put this on and I put the thicker shim in place. That is the 14/15 thousandth piece. And we'll see how much of a difference that can make. All right, so now I'm back. Did the install on the Omen. So I used the existing parts that I already had, but I did change out the shim that I was using, as I alluded to in the other portion earlier. That was a different material, that was brass, that was thinner, that was about 10/1000ths of an inch thickness. So what I did now, I think works really well. So here's what I'm going to suggest if you want to try to do this shimming process for your cable guard. First thing is determine exactly where the cable guard should be adjusted. If it's at the right place now, good, mark that on the parts. So you could use a pencil to mark both the pieces. You could use a, maybe like a gray marker or something that you could take off with some kind of like acetone or something later. But use something that you can reference to get back to that same spot. Then put the bow in the vise and take the cable slide off, or take the cable tension off the slide, and remove the actual screws here that hold it to the riser, and take it off completely. Because then you'll be able to get the shim in where it needs to be much more easily. I found that if you're trying to do that while it's on the bow, it probably won't work. So here's what I did. It resulted in definite straightening of it, and it's now, it's probably one of the best views actually. You can really see how straight it is. It's pretty straight. It resulted in it being very straight, considering the fact that I have it all the way out to the edge. So here's another look in. You can see the channel up here where the screw is. That's all the way over. So I have my vanes very close to my cables. I believe that's optimum for ease of tuning. Go with the least amount of tension that you can get away with, and in my case, that's all the way over. So I took it off, and then I put that shim that I showed you, that 13/14 thousandths, about 15, up to 15 thousandths maybe at most, thickness piece of metal that you're going to get. I actually ended up putting that on the bottom portion here. So there's, of course, when these parts fit together, you have two places where you can slide a shim in. I'll show you again. So you have, these parts that come together like this, right? You could put the shim here, as I was showing earlier, and that will work. Or you could put it underneath. And I found that it was easier and better to slide that shim in underneath, put the screw down on top, start to tighten that down. Then I just tightened it all the way down because I knew where I wanted it. And if you have marks placed on yours, you'll know where to tighten it down, everything. Then you can put it back on the bow. And then you'll have it at the place it needs to be. You'll have it locked in. And because you've eliminated some of that cant that you might be getting, you might see the slightest bit of point of impact change. That's what I have noticed. So give it a try if you want to shim your XF coupler. That's what I did. It works. If you want additional information on the products we offer, go to titaniumarcheryproducts.com or go to taparchery.com. Taparchery.com is our newest domain, and that is now the primary term that'll come up if you search for us. That's the primary site you'll find. We own both domains. Both addresses go to the same place. You get the same site either way. So that's it. Thanks for the support. Take care. As always, stay tapped out.